Olave St. Clair Baden-Powell, Baroness Baden-Powell GBE, née Soames, February 22, 1889 to June 25, 1977, was the first chief guide for Britain and the wife of Robert Baden-Powell, 1st Baron Baden-Powell, the founder of Scouting and co-founder of Girl Guides. She outlived her husband, who was 32 years her senior, by over 35 years. Lady Baden-Powell became chief guide for Britain in 1918. Later the same year, at the Swanwick Conference for Commissioners in October, she was presented with a gold silverfish, one of only 2 ever made. She was elected World Chief Guide in 1930. As well as making a major contribution to the development of the Guide/Girl Scout movements, she visited 111 countries during her life, attending Jamborees and National Guide and Scout associations. In 1932, she was created a Dame Grand Cross of the Order of the British Empire by King George V. Family and early life. Born in Chesterfield, England, Olave Soames was the 3rd child and youngest daughter of a brewery owner and artist Harold Soames, 1855 to 1918, of Greyrigg, Lilliput, Dorset, descended from the landed gentry Soames family of Sheffield Park, and his wife Catherine Mary, daughter of George Hill. She was educated by her parents and by several governesses at home. She lived in 17 homes in the first 23 years of her life. Olave became keen on outdoor sports including tennis, swimming, football, skating and canoeing, and also played the violin. Olave was the sister of Arthur Granville Soames and thus aunt to his children, including Christopher Soames, conservative politician and diplomat, who in 1947 wed Mary Churchill, the youngest child of Sir Winston Churchill. In January 1912, Olave met Second Boer War hero and founder of the Scouts, Robert Baden-Powell, on an ocean liner, RMSP Arcadian, on the way via the Caribbean to New York to start a lecture tour. She was 23, he was 55, and they shared the same birthday. They became engaged in September of the same year, causing a media sensation. They married on October 30, 1912 in a very private ceremony, in St. Peter's Church, Parkstone, her parish church. She was given away by her father. Apart from clergy, the only other people present were his brother and sister and Robert Keekwich, a close friend of his, her mother and brother, her brother-in-law and Miss Sie Bauer, a close friend of hers. The Scouts and Guides of England each donated a penny to buy the Baden-Powells a wedding gift of a car, not the Rolls-Royce called Jam Roll that was presented to them in 1929. Olave's father helped financially with the purchase of Pax Hill near Bentley, Hampshire, as a family home where she lived with her husband from January 29, 1919 until October 25, 1938. The Baden-Powells had 3 children, a son and 2 daughters, who took the courtesy titles of Honourable in 1929, the son later succeeding his father as the 2nd Lord Baden-Powell upon his father's death in 1941. Arthur Robert Peter Baden-Powell, later 2nd Baron Baden-Powell, 1913 to 1962, married Carine Boardman, 1913 to 1993, and they had 2 sons and a daughter. At Peter's death, the elder son Robert succeeded him as 3rd Baron Baden-Powell, the younger son, Michael, and the daughter live in Australia. The Hon. Heather Grace Baden-Powell, 1915 to 1986, married John Hawking, 1913 to 2004, and they had 2 sons, and the Hon. Betty St. Clair Baden-Powell, CBE, 1917 to 2004, like her mother, met her future husband on board ship, an older man, by a decade, who shared her birthday. She married, on September 24, 1936, Jervis Charles Robert Clay, 1907 to 2009. They had a daughter and 3 sons. Betty Clay was also prominent in the Guide movement in Northern Rhodesia until they retired to England in 1964 when she became involved with the Girl Guides in England until her death. In addition, when Olave's sister, Oriole Davidson, née Soames, died in 1919, Olave took her three nieces, Christian, 1912 to 1975, Claire, 1913 to 1980, and Yvonne, 1918 to 2000, into her family and brought them up as her children. War work. During 1915 and 1916, with World War I in progress, Olave assisted directly with the war effort in France. Robert had seen the usefulness of the YMCA's recreational huts for the soldiers and persuaded the Mercers Company, of which he had been master in 1912, to pay for such a hut at Val-de-Levers, Calais. It was to be staffed by adults connected with scouting. Olave was one of the team of 5 men and 3 women who staffed the hut at the start. She persuaded her mother to look after the children for the time she would be away. Olave left for France on October 7, 1915, when her second child was 5 months old. Her regular work in the Mercer's hut included serving cocoa and cigarettes and chatting with those who came in. She also recalled in her autobiography playing her violin and singing at the Christmas concert. Olave also adopted several stray animals during her time in Val-de-Levers. During this time, Robert had organized the Scouts to sponsor another recreational hut. Olave and 2 others started this hut at Étaples after Christmas 1915. At the end of January, Olave was ordered home due to sickness, ending her 3 months in France. Growing involvement in scouting. Olave and Robert moved into Ewhurst Place, outside Robertsbridge in Sussex in April 1913. In June of that year, the first Ewhurst Scout troop was inaugurated. Olave was the warranted scout master of this troop, assisted by the family's housemaid and the gardener. Olave accompanied Robert on many of his scouting tours and to events. She also typed letters for him. In 1915, the Baden-Powells bought a small car, and after Robert taught her to drive, Olave often drove him to engagements. Although most famously connected with the Girl Guides, Olave's first offer to help them in 1914 was turned down. The Girl Guide movement had started after pressure from girls who wanted to become scouts. It was set up by Robert Baden-Powell and his sister Agnes Baden-Powell. After the reorganization of the Girl Guides in 1915, Olave again offered to help, this time successfully, and she started organizing guiding in Sussex. She became the county commissioner for Sussex in March 1916. In October 1916, the first conference for county commissioners was held, and it was here that the commissioners unanimously requested that Olave take the role of chief commissioner. She was just pregnant with her 3rd child. Shortly before this, she had organized a great number of women in other parts of Britain to take up roles in guiding. In 1918, Olave was acclaimed chief guide, a title she much preferred to chief commissioner. Recognition. Global awards. In 1932, she was awarded the Dame Grand Cross of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire, GBE, by King George V in recognition of her volunteer work. Finland awarded her the Order of the White Rose of Finland, and Peru the Order of the Sun. In 1957 she was awarded both the 14th Bronze Wolf, the only distinction of the World Organization of the Scout Movement, awarded by the World Scout Committee for exceptional services to World Scouting, and the highest distinction of the Scout Association of Japan, the Golden Pheasant Award. Standard. Olave Baden-Powell was presented with a personal standard by the UK Girl Guides County Commissioners. It was designed by Mrs. Zigamala. K. Shuttleworth supervised the making of the standard. The standard of Lady Baden-Powell, Chief Guide of the World, is blue, azure, from the hoist to the fly. Nearest the hoist is the gold, or, trefoil, then come 2 small hemispheres, showing a colored map of the world, indicating her post as chief guide. These are placed high to the left of the main fly, which is divided throughout its length by 2 silver, argent, waves, amongst which are shown 3 ships with black hulls and white sails, 4 dolphins and the goldfish of the chief guide. Then between 2 red, gules, motto bands on which are embroidered the Baden-Powell and Girl Guide mottos in gold letters, there is a section alluding to the outdoor life, showing white tents on a green, verd, field. In the extreme fly the Baden-Powell crests are embroidered. Death of Robert Baden-Powell. In October 1938, Olave moved to the Outspan Hotel, Nyeri, Kenya, near her third cousin, Jack Soames, and the notorious Happy Valley set, with her husband, where he died, on January 8, 1941. Lord Errol was in the funeral procession, just before his murder on January 24, 1941. After her husband's death, Olave received thousands of letters of condolence. She was helped to reply to them all by Bertha Hines, the wife of David Hines, who was away fighting the Italian army that had invaded Ethiopia and Somalia. Often, Olave would watch Bertha's baby daughter, Penny, while Bertha typed reply letters. World War II. In 1942, she braved U-boat attacks to return to the UK and, as she had no home to return to, was allocated a Grace and Favour apartment in Hampton Court Palace, in which she lived from 1943 to 1976. Her own home, Pax Hill, had been commandeered and taken over by the Canadian military. Through World War II she toured the United Kingdom. She was on a visit when a V-2 missile damaged her Hampton Court apartment in 1944. As soon as she could after D-Day, she went to France and toured throughout Europe as the war ended to help revive guiding and scouting. After World War II, Olave led the guide movement worldwide for 40 years, traveling all over the globe helping to establish and encourage the guide movement in other countries, and bringing membership to over 6.5 million worldwide. Olave was present in Washington, D.C. in 1962 for the celebration of the 50th anniversary of the founding of the American Girl Scouts. Having suffered a heart attack in Australia in 1961, she was finally banned from traveling by her doctor at the age of 80 in 1970 when she was diagnosed with diabetes, from which she eventually died. In 1968, the Boy Scouts of America, BSA, gave Olave a credit card to defray her travel costs. She stopped traveling. The BSA asked her to use the card for keeping in touch. This included paying for over 2,000 Christmas cards she sent to those personally known to her. Having spent her later years in a Grace and Favour apartment at Hampton Court Palace, Olave died on June 25, 1977 at Birdley House, Bramley in Surrey. Her ashes were taken to Kenya to be buried in the same grave as her husband's remains. She was survived by her 2 daughters, her son having predeceased her. Legacy. The Olave Centre for Guides was built in North London in Olave's memory. This has the World Bureau and Pax Lodge on its grounds. Pax Lodge is one of WAG's 5 world centres. Scouts and Guides mark February 22 as BP Day or World Thinking Day, the joint birthdays of Robert and Olave Baden-Powell, to remember and celebrate the work of the Chief Scout and Chief Guide of the world. On that day in 2011, a blue plaque was unveiled near the site of the house in Chesterfield where she lived, by Derbyshire County Council. The plaque installation followed an online poll in which she received 18,026 votes out of 25,080, 72%. This compares to 1,231, 5%, for next most popular nominee, George Stephenson. The Olave Baden-Powell Bursary Fund was set up in 1979 from voluntary contributions in memory of Olave BP. Annually awarded bursaries aim to allow girls in Girl Guiding UK to further their interests and hobbies and realize their dreams. As a child, Olave learned the violin, her first violin she called Diana. It was a copy of a Stradivarius made by Messrs. Hill for the Paris exhibition, and many years later it was presented to the Guide Association. It is still available on loan to guides who are seriously learning to play the violin before they acquire their instrument. A movement was started in Australia, the idea being, when you buy an ice cream, buy one also for the chief guide, and this ice cream fund raises a significant sum every year, sent to Olave BP to give away to various guiding causes. One such was to provide doors for new guide buildings. Thank you for watching this video.